Hey everyone, it's Commissioner Eccles coming to you live from the Public Service Commission office here. My office, my assistant Faith over in our conference room. Faith, time for another community focus today.
I know it's been a few weeks since we had community focus, so it's been a busy summer, but we are in Hogansville today to experience that little community. And we're also going to talk with Aaron Glackham from Love 146, which is an organization that works with trafficking victims and prevention.
Yeah, Aaron, it's good to have you on today. I know as we focus a lot on human trafficking every week here, we have a special guest. So it's the first time you've been on, and we're really anxious to hear about your organization and your take on how things are going out there. I know it's a real challenge to keep up with these clever traffickers who are ruining the lives of people everywhere they go.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
So we're going to move you to the green room and talk with Councilwoman Mandy Neese. Mandy, I was in your lovely town recently presenting you all with an Energy Matters Award for Sustainability. And let's first just introduce folks to you. You actually are in the paving business. You are the mayor pro tem of the city. And kind of like I'm the vice chair of the commission, you're the mayor pro tem. So it's a position where you become the hero if the mayor's not there, right?
That's it.
And the same for me. I have a kind of a backup role, which I really enjoy. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So Faith, going down 85, you got Callaway Gardens down there. You head to Columbus. You got that I-185, that goes to Fort Benning. So maybe it's a part of the state that some folks haven't gone to.
Yeah. And I think that's the reason we do community focus, right? Is to shine a spotlight on some of maybe the smaller communities around our state that people might not necessarily get a chance to stop by and kind of spotlight them and show how special they are.
Yeah. Mandy, tell us a little bit about Hogansville, because it's very close to Interstate 85, just a couple of miles, and boom, you're right there in a little quaint Americana downtown.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is when even me, myself, growing up in Georgia, born and raised, on Fort McPherson and then in Fayette County, I didn't know where Hogansville was until I started dating a man who is from Hogansville. And I said, well, where is that? And he said, well, it's right off exit 28. And I said, oh, where the Loves is? And he said, absolutely, where the Loves is, right? Huge truck stop right before you hit that 80, the 185-85 split to either go Alabama or head to Columbus, Fort Benning. And literally 4 miles from that interchange is this quaint little town, a little railroad mill town that, it's a hidden jewel, but it is right next to the interstate. And so we're in between Noonan and LaGrange. Most people always ask, they're like, where is Hogansville? And I said, just below Noonan, just north of LaGrange. Most people can find us that way. But it's a really small community at this point. But I think a lot of days I look at Hogansville now as what Monroe was about 10 years ago. Monroe is just off of the main line road, but right there you see this booming little charming historic town, and I think that's what's happening with Hogansville right now.
Faith, you live in a community just off an interstate, and one of the things I love about us doing community focus is maybe we convince people to go further than the truck stop or the gas station right at the interstate, because you think about how quaint downtown Covington is, and with Councilwoman Neese, how quaint Hogansville is. It's just a matter of people going a little bit further, taking a little bit of time just to drive through and to see, beautiful homes or flowers. They had a cool pollinator garden there. I stopped and took a picture of your little pollinator garden, Councilwoman. How long have y'all had that?
So that was an effort that started about 4 years ago, and it really was. It was simply the effort of trying to educate the public on saving the bees. We have several, triangular spaces that were just, lawn. And so a group of people in town said, listen, we want to do these pollinator gardens for the purpose of, giving the bees an establishment. And they're beautiful. They're gorgeous, and you can see the bees, and the hummingbirds. And that's what's so amazing is someone's small idea to make a positive impact, and to also just see something viable happen very quickly. And every time, just after you were here, the ladies were out pulling the weeds and, making sure that the pathway was clear. And it's been a great experience to see small gardens like that happen, because people in this town really do care about, one, preserving the history of these historic landmark buildings and keeping that historical feel, but then also having an environmental idea behind it. I think it's a really neat community for that sense.
Well,
Faith,
and you mentioned the hummingbirds. You guys have a whole festival surrounding the hummingbirds, right? Every year you have a hummingbird festival.
We do, and it's one of the neatest events because we are a sidewalk community and we have the green space in town. Everybody kind of converges in that third weekend in October, and we see 15,000 people has been the most recent figures. And that event is a lot of people don't realize, but that event is the historical preservation committee that the Hummingbird Committee funds so many of either our historical matching grants. They provide matching funds to save mainly the historic Royal Theater is the biggest project that we have. But that Hummingbird Festival is really a charity event, right? It's a historical charity event that raises the funds that I think the last figures I heard, they put $4 million back into the city of Hogansville.
Faith, I was at that gala in Savannah. The Georgia Historical Society inducted Dan Cathy and Shirley Franklin both into as trustees. I just recently made a contribution to a historic preservation group in Monroe, Georgia, and I'll be speaking out at one of the cemeteries August 13th, I think. And we wrote that book on Jekyll Island history. That'll be out August 29th. So I think history is so important for people to connect with and understand. One, it gives you an appreciation for how hard other people have worked before you to give you what you have, right? Right, Councilwoman?
Well, and what's neat about Hogansville, and you see it in LaGrange and in Gainesville and other places like that, Hogansville was a railroad mill village town, right? And so the original mill, which is still running today, the original mill is a specialty fabrics mill. But that mill and the investment that the mill made in the time to provide housing for their employees, to put sidewalks in so they could walk, those are all ideas that, if you sit down and think about it, we're forward thinking. Of course, it's giving people who are going to work a place to live, but they also own those homes. That's what's neat. My husband was born and raised in the village. He still owns his Mill Village home.
That's cool.
Our daughter lives in it. She just our oldest got out of college, and I said, but that Mill Village community and that idea, this sidewalk layout of a walking town, is a foundation for something amazing that we all kind of want to creep back to, right? I mean, there's nothing more entertaining and pleasurable about living here to know that I can walk my daughters to school. I can walk to City Hall. I can walk to the post office. I can walk to church, and I do it all the time. That in itself is huge to me. To be able to have a community that can, I can walk and get a sandwich at lunch at the little restaurant that opened in the historic hotel, and, never have to get in my car. We very, very rarely leave town, and that's a great thing.
Yeah.
Councilwoman, you're in the paving business, and Hogansville was recognized for this sustainable road project that you all did. For those of you that are watching either on LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, either live or after the fact, I presented Hogansville with this award because it checked off so many different boxes: saving energy, recycling materials, saving money. So tell us a little bit about this clean energy project you did, because most people, when they think about clean energy, they don't think about paving.
Well, and I think it's interesting because when I was thinking about it and thinking about what to talk to you about, I thought, so many environmental efforts and so many sustainability programs and stuff, I don't think that people can see the financial or the environmental impacts very well, right? It's hard to measure certain things until you really delve down and put it in layman's terms. And so, of course, absolutely, I think most people see the road construction business as being something intrusive, trees get cut, this happened, all of the negative side of it, heavy equipment and things like that. And so about 10 years ago, a process was developed utilizing mixed in place and recycling in place. And in Georgia, because we are the granite capital of the world and we have granite everywhere, no one's really ever thought, hey, we don't have rock. We're not like Florida where they have to rail it in. It's pretty close by. Quarries all over. And so I think because we've always had that resource around, the idea of not using it, I don't think a lot of people really thought about it until, people realize that those natural resources are still limited. That quarry only goes so far. And at that point, what are you going to do? And so the process, what started with Pine Street was just a serious failure of sewer lines down the middle of the roadway because Hogansville fell apart in the 60s, right? 60s, 70s. It fell apart financially. And so the maintenance of our infrastructure didn't happen. And so everything that we had been put in ages ago was well past its age of replacement. And so in the past few years, we've been blessed to get the CBDG grants to repair and replace our failing sewer system. And those projects have happened and that infrastructure is replaced. But what we were left with was a roadway, Pine Street, that had been piece patched over and over and over because of so many failures that when I got here, the road needed to be entirely replaced. And I mean, down to, 12 inches of material restart. And that process is cumbersome. When you take an existing road with, we have a housing authority.
Mandy, let me ask you, you're in the paving business. I don't know that much about it other than it looks like a really hot job out there. Is what you're describing when you go down 12 inches, is it much like people do in historic restoration of, say, an old historic house in Savannah, when they strip the paint back and they go all the way down to the original, whatever the wall happens to be made of? Is that what you're trying to do? It's just on a much heavier and bigger scale?
Right. I mean, when something is not maintained, you think about it, maintenance is what keeps something viable. If something's not maintained and neglected, or it's then torn apart because of other failures, at a certain point, there's no just putting a Band-Aid over it. Mm-hmm. You're at that point, like you said, you're forced to go down to the studs. And with road construction, you're talking about going back down to the rock and the base and making huge repairs. And those repairs are times, the time that it takes to rebuild a road from scratch is a huge deal. But what the process was with Pine Street is we look at those roadways and, luckily people were able to realize that using what's in place and adding cement to that material and recreating that through this pulverization process eliminates all of that haul off of all of that failed material. because that felled material still has a huge value. It creates structure. It just has to be put back in place. And so we use what's called a Wirtgen mixer. That machine is specifically made for it, and it allows you to take that material and reuse it in place versus hauling it off, recycling it, because there are processes.
So I guess the finer that you grind the material, right, the easier it is to pack it. So does it require this specialized machine? I assume it has blades or hammers or something that does this.
It's imagine a garden tiller confined in a space. It's got 600 teeth that, as it depths itself down into the ground, it rolls on a rotator and it breaks everything down to several inches, small, down to gradation. And yes, you're exactly right. It takes those broken pieces that aren't compactable, makes them into a homogeneous blend that we can then recompact. And so you're using what was already put there. You're just having to make it usable again. And this one machine eliminates the need for so much.
How much does a machine like that cost? I mean, your paving company obviously bought it, right?
Right. Yeah, we do. We have 5 of them. We're one of the largest in the state that does it. We have 5 of them. They're, they run about $750,000 new. And they are a heavy piece of equipment that is, in for the long term. We don't have to replace them very often. They're made to do that work. So they have a removable, recyclable tooth that does the grinding. So those teeth are constantly replaced. They're sent back to the manufacturer and refurbished. So it's a really neat process that the manufacturer of the equipment has thought about the long-term viability of the machine as well, with its used parts being recyclable.
So if you didn't have that particular machine, all of, I guess, the old asphalt would be loaded up into a dump truck, taken to a paving plant, and then reused there, and then hauled back. So what we're saving here, we're saving the diesel fuel on the on the dump trucks. We are saving time because you've got the hauling, right? Is there other things that we're saving?
Right. So like on this process, and what we do is that asphalt is always removed and then taken back to the plant because, like, asphalt is 100% recyclable. And the nice thing about asphalt is the liquid that makes asphalt bond is reheated and reused. So that's what's so valuable, right? Like right now, petroleum and liquid asphalt is so high. So every ton of asphalt creates 4 tons. If we recycle 1, you get 4 new ones that go into that. And that material is incredibly valuable to that asphalt plant. So asphalt is taken back to the plant and recycled. What we salvage is what's under it. The rock from the quarry and that dirt are able to be recompacted rather than hauling that off and disposing it, in the worst case, as a landfill. So many of these projects, when we haul what is then called unsuitable material, right? Because it'll be a blend of a little bit of rock, a little bit of dirt, gosh, in Noonan, you're talking about historic bricks that were covered up years ago, things like that. So that material, yes, Tim, that is the stuff that you're not taking to the landfill and you're not using the diesel fuel to haul off.
Wow. Well, this has been fantastic. I want to thank you for your leadership, your service to the city of Hogansville. I look forward to seeing you at the Georgia Municipal Association Conference in Savannah with probably every mayor and every mayor pro tem and every city manager in the state. It is a great collection of leadership. And congratulations again on the city of Hogansville getting our Energy Matters Sustainability Award.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. It means a lot. Like I said, we're little and we're small, but I think we're fierce and trying to balance being historic and being well thought out. I think all our planning and things that we're really trying really hard. So you guys come see us.
Well, great. Well, have a fantastic day, and we're going to move you back to the green room and introduce Aaron Blackham. Aaron Faith's going to interview you. You are our human trafficking specialist here today as we talk about yet another great organization working in the space to try to end it. So thank you so much for being on with us.
Thank you for having me, Commissioner. I really appreciate it.
So Erin, you're with Love 146,
Yes.
which is it's a international nonprofit,
Mm-hmm.
correct?
That's
and
correct.
so tell us about that name. How did this name come about?
Yeah. So again, thank you so much for the time. So we are an international human rights organization focused on ending child trafficking. And yes, our name is Love 146, which is pretty unique. So we got this name from when our co-founder, Rob Morris, went to Southeast Asia about 20 years ago. That is where we thought human trafficking was happening at the time. And he was invited on an investigative mission to go undercover, go to a brothel, and see what human trafficking was all about. In retrospect, we understand that might have not been the best way to go about info gathering, but at the time, that is what we did. So he went into this brothel where there were a lot of young girls who were available to be purchased in no uncertain terms. But one of the young girls was staring back through the glass with a look of defiance on her face, like, I dare you to pick me. And he just carried her and her look of determination with her throughout his career. So when they left that evening and were going to come back the next day to do the raid, the brothel had unfortunately been tipped off. And so none of the young people who were there were able to be rescued. So we carry this young girl's name, Love 146, in the hope that she was able to find freedom and the love that she deserves and needs to heal. And then the 146 was tied to services that folks would be able to purchase. So that's why we carry her name with us and Love 146 in everything we do.
So, and just to be clear, the girls who were at this brothel, who were being sold, essentially, all had numbers pinned to them, right? And so this particular girl's number was 146.
Right, which corresponded with what folks could purchase.
Right. So tell us what services you all provide. What do you do in this space?
Yes, so we do a lot. And so since, our 20-year anniversary is coming up, it's pretty wild. We actually still do work in the Philippines, primarily around younger boys and girls. So we have 2 safe homes there that we work with young kids. We have now expanded to do work in the United Kingdom, where we primarily work with trafficking survivors who have been brought into the country. And then in the US, which I can speak most about, we do both survivor care services out of our New Haven, Connecticut headquarters. We partner with the Department of Children and Families up there to work directly with confirmed young people and get them the services they need and journey along with them. And then we also do prevention education, which is the team that I am on. So prevention education, we have a curriculum, which is called Not a Number. We developed it about 8 or so years ago when we saw some gaps in the field, primarily that boys weren't being discussed as potential victims, girls weren't, or women weren't being discussed as potential abusers and perpetrators, and then LGBTQ youth were left out of the conversation completely. And we were doing prevention education, but we saw that our young boys just tuned out and were like, oh, no, this will never happen to me, because they couldn't see themselves in the examples that we were talking about. So we wanted to develop something that was more inclusive to our young people, because we know trafficking affects everybody. Boys, girls, everyone. You can come from the best home and still have vulnerabilities that traffickers look to take advantage of. So those are our programs, both survivor care and prevention education.
Wonderful. So if an organization wanted to access your training materials, how would they go about contacting you all?
Yep. Great question. So they can reach out to me at Not a Number. So NOTA and then number NUMBER at love146.org. So, and that's something we do day in and day out. So our staff will go into our own communities and not a number with the kids that we serve, because we know the kids in our communities, but we know that's not a sustainable way to reach young people. So what we do is we do train other youth serving professionals across the country, including Georgia. I think right now we're in about 30 or so states. We have facilitators in about 30 states running not a number with their own kids in their own ways. And so all of those people have come to a training in either Houston, Atlanta, or New Haven to become experts on the Not a Number curriculum, and then take it back to their communities where they can tweak it a little bit and make it as relevant as possible with the kids they serve day in and day out.
Erin,
yes.
Do you look to people to host a training? I mean, is that something that we could consider doing here?
100%. Yes. So we have a lot of great partners that maybe aren't in the position to go and do direct work with youth, but maybe have like the financial capacity to host a training. So there is a financial component to it. We never want it to be a barrier. So that is something that we are working really hard with our leadership and the nonprofits that we work with day in and day out to remove those barriers. But yes, that is something.
I am interested in us bringing your training here to Atlanta. So I'm going to have Faith work with you to see if we can do this. Is it a Friday night, Saturday, or is it a one-day training? What's involved?
Great question. So it's pretty intensive because we want to make sure folks are very prepared by the time they take this information back to their communities. So it's actually a full 3 days. We usually aim to do like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 9 a.m. to 4:30. So it would be during work hours. Day one is a human trafficking 101. So we want to make sure everybody is on the same page. We often have educators come to our trainings along with social service providers. And so we want to make sure everybody's speaking the same language. While trafficking can look like the movie Taken, 99% of the time it doesn't. And it happens in our own communities, under our own noses. And it's often by people that the young person trusts. It's not a stranger. So we want to make sure everybody has the same language and knowledge. And then the end of day one and day two is all 5 modules that will model for our youth serving professionals so they can see what it looks like in real time. And then day 3 is an opportunity for those professionals to do a teach back. It is not pass fail. Everybody passes, but again, an opportunity for folks to begin to practice that language that may be a little bit newer to them.
Right. Well, if they're going to take it back to their community and teach it,
right,
they have to be comfortable doing that.
Exactly.
The profile of the person that you're looking to train, are they community leaders? Are they volunteers? Are they law enforcement? Are they maybe other organizations that work in this space? Well, who do you want at a training?
Yep. So it definitely varies. I think the biggest barrier that facilitators have had in the past is access to kids. So if you have access to kids in your day-to-day job and can convene those young people and run groups, you're already yards ahead of someone who maybe is still trying to like get into a school district or something like that. We also want folks who have trauma-informed principles and training, just so we're making sure we're responding to our young people in the appropriate fashion. So yes, people at other nonprofit organizations doing direct care with kids, people that work at child advocacy centers who have been able to convene groups, our church partners who have after-school programs or programs like that, and then juvenile justice probation officers or correction officers. Anybody is honestly welcome to come. And we have folks from all those different settings across the country running these groups with really positive results. So we do say it's primary prevention. So our goal is to work with kids who have not experienced any victimization yet, but we have seen really positive results for kids who have experienced victimization in that secondary prevention category as well.
Wow, Faith, I think this is, you remember, Faith, when we did the training for utility workers, and because certain utility workers have to go into houses, like to light a furnace, for example. So a person can't get heat if they have natural gas unless the utility workers come in. So, and I was concerned that, okay, if we've got a utility worker that has to be granted access, and you got a trafficker there with some girls or children, does the utility worker know what to do if they see a mattress on the floor and a bunch of girls in one room, and squalor conditions, and so I'm wondering, Faith, if we did something like this either during the legislature on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, maybe even hosted it here in our office or at one of the downtown, easy access buildings, say like one of the utilities, or if we did it during the summer when teachers would be out, and maybe had one of our university partners, like Agnes Scott College or Georgia State even, host this. Faith, what do you think?
I think that's a great idea. Aaron, my question is, do you have any continuing education credits as part of this program?
Yes, we have.
Because that'll attract teachers.
It does attract teachers. And that is something we learned very early on.
Yeah.
Yes. So we do a lot of work with school districts, again, across the country. In Atlanta, we're specifically in the year 2 of a 3-year grant from the Office of Trafficking in Persons with DeKalb County Public Schools.
Awesome.
So yes, we do have CEUs, or continuing education credits or units. About 18 is what we've been approved for.
Awesome. Okay.
Great. Well, Aaron, thank you for being on today and for your service. And we're going to get with you to see if we can put something together. Really appreciate you doing that. Hey, everyone, catch us right here most Thursday mornings. Faith, when are we coming back and where are we going to be?
So we will be back on July 7th with Augusta. And then July 21st, we'll be in Bethlehem.
Great. Hey, yes, there is a Bethlehem, Georgia.
And yes, their post office is busy at Christmas.
Yeah, that's right. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. And I hope you have a great rest of the week. See you.
Thanks.